In 1912, the Smithsonian Institute chartered 3 cargo ships in absolute secrecy. The destination? The middle of the Atlantic Ocean. The cargo? Thousands of giant human bones. Entire skeletons of creatures measuring between 3 and 4 meters tall were dumped into the deep waters, where they could never be recovered. But why? What was in those bones that needed to be erased from human history forever? If you think this is just another baseless conspiracy theory, you need to hear what comes next. Because this is not a modern internet invention. We are talking about something documented in reputable 19th-century newspapers. In 1885, the New York Times published the discovery of nearly 4-meter-tall skeletons found in Native American graves. In 1898, the Minneapolis Journal reported the excavation of giant remains in Ohio. The Arizona Gazette described in detail a cave in the Grand Canyon filled with giant mummies with Egyptian features. These were not sensationalist tabloids. They were America's most respected newspapers. And then, suddenly, silence. Complete and absolute. No academic mention, no museum exhibiting these findings, no official explanation. The skeletons simply disappeared. And when someone asks about them today, the answer is always the same. It's impossible. Giants never existed. You're believing in myths. But what if they're not myths? What if the history we were taught in school is an edited, sanitized version manipulated to protect a specific narrative about our origins? Let's go back to the beginning. Literally. Genesis chapter 6, verse 4. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. Nephilim. That is the name given to these creatures in the Hebrew scriptures. And it is not just an isolated passage. Numbers 13 mentions the giants of Anak. Deuteronomy speaks of Og, king of Bashan, whose iron bed was over 4 meters long. 2 Samuel describes Philistine warriors with 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot. 6 fingers. Keep that in mind. Now let's cross the ocean. Native American tribes have surprisingly consistent legends about a race of giants who inhabited the continent before them. The Paiutes of Nevada tell stories about the Siteka, red-haired cannibal giants who lived in caves. In 1911, miners discovered Lovelock Cave in Nevada and found exactly what the legends described. Mummies over 6 feet tall, preserved red hair, gigantic artifacts. The Humboldt Museum at the University of Nevada still holds some of these artifacts today. But the skeletons? Gone. Sent where? You already know the answer. The mound builders, builders of burial mounds scattered throughout the American territory, left physical evidence impossible to ignore. During the 19th century, as settlers expanded westward, thousands of these mounds were excavated. And repeatedly, systematically, giant skeletons were found. We're not talking about tall people. We're talking about bone structures that defy everything we know about human anatomy. Reports describe specific and consistent characteristics. Elongated skulls, much larger than normal. Double rows of teeth, an anomaly documented in multiple cases. And yes, 6 fingers and toes, just as described in the Bible. Polydactyly on a population scale, not as an individual anomaly. Femurs that indicated a height between 3 and 4 meters. Rib cages so wide that an average man could pass through them. In 1856, workers in East Wheeling, Virginia, found a 3.5-meter skeleton inside a burial mound. In 1879, another 10-foot skeleton was discovered in Brewersville, Indiana, with an elongated skull and double dentition. Wisconsin reported multiple discoveries between 1880 and 1912. Always the same pattern, always the same impossible characteristics, and always the same institution showing up to study the findings. The Smithsonian Institute. This is where the story gets truly sinister. The Smithsonian was founded in 1846 with a clear mission: to preserve American knowledge and history. But when it came to these giant skeletons, its actions were the opposite. Correspondence between amateur archaeologists and the institution shows a disturbing pattern. Whenever giants were found, the Smithsonian requested that they be sent to Washington, and then they simply disappeared from the records. In 2014, a story circulated about the U.S. Supreme Court forcing the Smithsonian to release confidential documents admitting to the destruction of thousands of giant skeletons in the early 20th century. Although this particular story is disputed as an urban legend, the fact remains, where are the skeletons? If dozens, perhaps hundreds, of discoveries were documented in reputable newspapers over decades, where is a single complete skeleton on display today? The official answer is that they never existed, that the reports were exaggerated, that they were just tall Native Americans being described in a sensationalist way. But that explanation doesn't hold up when you look at the anatomical details. Tall people do not have double dentition. They do not have 6 fingers as a population trait. They do not have non-pathologically elongated skulls. Now, let's get to the question no one wants to ask. If these giants existed, what happened to their DNA? The Bible says that the Nephilim were the product of interbreeding between sons of God and daughters of men. If that happened, then their genetics should have left traces. And perhaps they did. Polydactyly, although rare, still occurs today. Gigantism exists as a medical condition, although it is always treated as a hormonal anomaly. But what if it is genetic memory? What if fragments of this DNA still circulate in the human population, suppressed but not extinct? There is another, even more disturbing possibility. What if they are not extinct? Legends of giants sleeping in deep caves appear in cultures around the world. The Greeks spoke of the Titans imprisoned in Tartarus. The Norse spoke of frozen ice giants awaiting Ragnarok. And today, with increasingly frequent expeditions to Antarctica, finding anomalies under the ice, structures that should not exist, some are asking, what is really buried on that continent? Consider also the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of humanity's oldest texts. Gilgamesh is described as being over 3 meters tall, 2/3 god and 1/3 human. The same hybrid description of the Nephilim. And his tomb was supposedly found in Iraq in 2003, just before the American invasion. After the discovery, an immediate military operation isolated the area. What did they find there? It was never disclosed. Here is the real reason for the cover-up. If giants existed, if the Nephilim were real, then the Darwinian narrative of gradual evolution collapses. Because these creatures do not fit into the evolutionary tree. They suggest external intervention, genetic manipulation, something beyond natural selection. And that is unacceptable to the scientific establishment that has built its authority on Darwinism. The Smithsonian was not protecting science by hiding this evidence. It was protecting an ideology, a materialistic worldview that cannot tolerate the possibility of the supernatural. Because if giants were real, then maybe the flood was real. Maybe the Tower of Babel was real. Maybe the entire biblical narrative about ancient history is more than mythology. And if it is real, then the implications are terrifying. Because if giants once walked the earth, if they were the product of something beyond ordinary humanity, then our history does not begin with primates slowly evolving in Africa. It begins with something much older, much more complex, and infinitely more disturbing. So here we are, more than a century after the last giant skeletons were thrown into the ocean, asking the same questions our ancestors asked. Who were they? Why were they erased? And most importantly, what else is being hidden from us? History is written by the victors, they say. But it is also written by those who control the institutions. The Smithsonian controls the American archaeological narrative. And it has chosen a version of history that excludes giants, excludes the supernatural, excludes anything that challenges established scientific orthodoxy. But the truth has an annoying way of resurfacing. Every old newspaper scanned, every Native American legend documented, every questionable photograph that emerges from dusty archives is a crack in the dam. And eventually, dams crack completely. You decide what to believe. The textbooks that never mention these discoveries, or the newspapers of the time that reported them as facts. The science that says giants are impossible, or the Bible that says they walked among us. If this video has opened your eyes to a history they tried to bury, leave your like and share so more people can discover what is being hidden. Subscribe to the channel because there are many more buried truths waiting to be unearthed. And in the comments, tell me, do you believe the Smithsonian destroyed the evidence, or is there another explanation? The conversation continues below.